everybody. Welcome. It's another week of Align Online, your favorite weekly gathering where we talk about leadership and authenticity and community and how that shapes the teams and organizations we're a part of. We're really excited to have you back and hanging out with us again this week. And let's say hi to the guys joining on the conversation today. Zach and Graylin. What's up, guys?
What's up, man? How's it going? Jinx.
Jinx.
It's good.
Good.
It is
Pinch
good.
poke. Let me coke. Okay, well done. Doing well. Doing well. It's a good week. Good start to the week so far. So yeah, glad to have you guys back. Good to see you, Zach. We love having you back in the conversation. So this is going to be great today.
Good to be here.
Always.
I'm really excited for where we're headed in the conversation today, and what our community is going to just hear and engage with and process with us as we continue, I guess, our journey.
Yeah. This is really exciting for us, is because like last week we jumped into culture, and this is pretty much the foundation of everything that we do at Alignment Leadership. And we are so glad that you are back with us today to continue that conversation with us. So you guys lean in, man. We're really excited to share this with you guys, and man, can't wait to get this thing started. So let's do it.
That's right.
Well, sweet. Hey, so great place to start is, what is culture? Like, how do we define culture? If we're going to unpack it over the next 5 weeks and talk about the 5 traits that define culture, well, what is it we're actually talking about?
Yeah.
So I just want to reference a great book that I am reading currently. It just happened to launch in ebook format, and you can get it right now at Chris.
Wow.
It's called Align: 4 Simple Steps to Alignment. So in chapter 2, look at that. In chapter 2, it actually talks about creating culture as the starting point for fulfillment. And so it defines culture as, and I quote, "Culture is the culmination of your people's hopes, preferences, traditions, experiences, and beliefs." Now, we're not going to tackle all 5 this week. We're actually just going to start with experiences.
That's right. Yeah, those 5 traits, and we call them the 5 common traits, not like it's an exhaustive list, but it's like ones that are pretty powerful and show up a lot. So they're like the 5 common traits that shape a person's worldview or the culture that they add every time they show up. So yeah, today we're actually going to start with experiences, and we found this really fascinating quote by Maya Angelou. Let's put that up on the screen, Zach. She says, "I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget the way you made them feel." And it's we found this to be a really perfect segue into talking about experiences, because if you think about past experiences, especially if it goes way back, we tend to forget some of the kind of specific details of experiences, but those things can sometimes either get a little gray or fuzzy, or maybe we ultimately even completely forget about some details in certain life experiences. But there's one thing we probably never forget, and that's emotional impact that we felt. So we have something in our memory bank that's like, this was a really powerful thing, something impactful I experienced on an emotional side, and now that's been logged into my life story as a experience that now shapes the way I show up at work or at home. But I mean, for the context of what we deal with, organizations, leadership, we're talking about in the workplace, of course. So today we're actually going to start with experiences, just because we kind of see experiences as almost the connecting point for all of these other traits, and it kind of shapes them all. I mean, you could argue that all the traits are intertwined, and of course they are. But we really felt like experiences was a great place to start. So that's what we're going to dive into today.
Right.
Yeah.
Exciting.
That's right. So, and that quote kind of alluded to it, and even what I was just saying, but let's talk through what it is about experiences that are so important? Why, continuing that thought, why are we starting with that one? Why are they so important to the conversation that we're launching here today?
Yeah, I think even piggybacking off what you read in that quote, a part of it is just we're so complex. There's so many things that make us who we are. And to some degree, I can turn on who I am when I'm at HEB and turn off who I am when I'm at home. But there's some things that I just carry with me everywhere I go. There was a quote from this guy, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. His name's Pete Scazzaro. And he talks about how like Jesus is in my heart, but grandma's in my bones. Just talking about how deep rooted some of these family traditions can be.
Right.
And we see that right now, like building towards election season. And there's some deep rooted tradition, beliefs rooted in how we grew up and how we responded to those things.
Yeah. And I would say and even in the conversations that I've been having with people and dialoguing about anything usually politically related is always attached to some experience, even if it's a belief or a perspective or an opinion or a conviction that someone holds. It's almost always attached to some life experiences, and so I find life stories, experiences of people to be just incredibly fascinating as we think about how it shapes the culture of a team or organization.
Yeah, if anybody wants to see a case study in this, go and click on Josh's Facebook right now. He's kicking the hornet's nest and bringing up these political statuses.
Yeah.
And you'll see people bring their worldview to the conversation.
That's true. And you'll see mine. You'll see mine too. So thanks. That's what I needed. That's definitely what needed to happen, Zach. Thank you.
Yeah, and as it relates to like the professional environment, you really, as you're beginning to kind of develop your leadership style, your leadership, I don't know, non-negotiables, like what you really value, your value system. Oftentimes you can trace those back to experiences you either had, personally, professionally, like your family. I mean, and those are things that you really need to acknowledge. You need to and take the time to hear other people's side of their experiences, because man, it shows up in the workplace, positive or negative. So yeah, this is exciting. This is a good place to start, because I feel like this type of dialogue is like, it's so needed in this season. So
and so let's go ahead and Zach, let's put that definition. I mean, somewhat of our working definition, kind of what we talk about with experiences, but these are past experiences that shape who you are, and they influence how you react in situations at work. So we've mentioned that, of course, but what we're getting at is like, and even what Graylin was just getting at is these are experiences that they're so kind of potent in your memory that they expand beyond what just happened to you. It's not just like details or facts about this was the order of events, this is what happened. It's more about what you experienced emotionally, how you felt while it was happening. So it goes deeper than just that was a great experience or a terrible experience, but how you felt in the moment. And what we would love to encourage in our conversations with people in talking about culture and experiences specifically is, can you remember what you felt from that experience, and can you remember why you maybe felt that way? And when you start to unpack the depth of that conversation, that reveals a whole lot of information as to why someone shows up the way they do in the current moment.
Right.
Yeah.
It's I mean, that really reveals a lot, I think, that last part.
Recently I was listening to this NPR talk, and they were talking about how most of our memories are fabricated. And
oh wow.
We just take bits and pieces. Like some of them we actually remember, some we saw in photographs, some are other stories that were enmeshing with our own memories. And it really does leave you with your brain filling in gaps and you remembering how you felt in that moment. And then building, values and other things based off those experiences. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And so this really is the process or the journey of self-awareness, the journey of a leader to unpack, why do I believe what I believe? Like, how did I end up here?
Right.
Yeah. It kind of makes me think, even like as we unpack those kinds of experiences and knowing that some of the details, especially again, if it's just, we're trying to, recollect what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of leads me to think that as we're working out the culture we want, that, what do we want on our team? What do we want in our organization? There's got to be this willingness to even somewhat like hold loosely some of the maybe details you think you remember from experiences. So what I, more specifically, what I mean is, like,
Are you
let's
talking
say
about your
that,
marriage? Is
let's
You're talking
just
about my
say,
marriage?
yeah,
We all know this.
it's funny. Yeah. When you talk about like who remembers the details, I tell you,
Oh man.
that is a lot of conversation at home. My wife being like, yeah, you have the worst memory ever. That is not what happened.
Same.
Turns the spreadsheet around. This is how much we spent on that. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, no, what I'm getting at though is like this ability to somewhat let go of those details in those moments. Let's say when we're maybe when we're at a crossroads, as a team, where we're thinking like, what is the best way to do this, and we're showing up with like, I feel so connected to this specific way or method or this idea, like this is the right way, and it's tied to this experience and this memory I have. Just what you just said, Zach, made me think maybe we need to somewhat have the self-awareness in those moments to be like, this is what I think I remember, like this is, I'm thinking this is why I'm so passionate about this, but it's possible that, the details in my memory bank are even a little bit, biased or something. And so I'm open to hearing another person's experiences too. And we kind of dialogue through it. So,
Yeah, knowing that our minds are fallible, like, it should foster humility. But I really think, yeah, it goes back to like our four principles, right? Like, if leadership is loving and serving others, then my goal is not to be right. It's actually to retract some of my worldview to create space for their worldview.
Yeah, that is excellent.
You think about how important this is at the beginning. I mean, yes, you have to do this, all throughout, professional relationships, wherever you guys are. But at the beginning, when you're establishing the culture, I love that, just that thought, Josh, of kind of holding loosely some of the things, because I know, like, there's a construct kind of like built on positive experiences or an ideal culture that I'll bring into a new work environment. And if I don't see that, lived out or created, then I feel like, expectation has not been met. But man, with this approach, with this idea of, these experiences, may have happened a little different than the way I remembered them. It kind of like sets you up to be open and willing, to hear others' ideas and, kind of reshape your approach or, this value system that you come in with, in the beginning.
Wow.
So I love that.
That is so good. I think you are spot on. It's these past experiences create future expectations, and we don't even know it, right? We come into the, our team, we show up to work, or or if it's a team you volunteer with, whatever, we show up in those moments with expectations for how things should go, and those expectations just kind of came out of usually, past experiences. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that because that just really stood out to me. I was like, that's profound. That's exactly what happens. That's exactly what I do.
Yeah. And as a leader, we come in with that, like, kind of like this checklist of do's and don'ts based on what we experienced in previous work situations. But go ahead, Zach. I know you're about to say something. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. I mean, I was just thinking, like, personally or professionally, doesn't so much of like our tension or our frustration or just conflict come from unexpressed expectations?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I love how you talk about past experiences shape future expectations.
Yeah.
And I know that's true for me. And then I place those on other people who have different worldview and different experiences. And I'm frustrated when they don't conform to mine.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's dead on for sure.
Now, if I could catch myself, if I could actually have better self-awareness to notice my frustration, you know what I mean? And then actually be able to be like, oh, I know exactly what's happening right now. That would be ideal, right? For all of us.
Yeah.
If we could in those moments be like, oh, I just caught it. No.
Yeah.
I'm
It
putting
usually
an
happens after
expectation
the
on someone
fact.
else. Yeah. Usually
You're
it's
like,
after the fact.
oh,
It all comes out, you know, and you're like, oh wow, I had this
that's why I
expectation.
responded that way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I thought you would do this, but you didn't. Yeah.
What the heck? So recognizing that our life experiences shape us in a lot of different ways, and that we need to like name and purpose our life experiences to be the leader that we were created to be, and also recognizing that life experiences shape others. So creating space and building empathy to be able to like create this culture together. How do we practically live this out in the workplace tomorrow, today? We still have half a day. What can I go do right
Good.
now?
It's good.
It's a good question.
Yeah, I think especially when it comes to sharing responsibilities, tasks, you know, and who's doing what. You're kind of talking through like, well, how are we going to accomplish this thing that we need to do as a team? I think it's really important when you just notice someone that has a very different. Let's say they're expressing like a either. Well, I think this is the order of like we should do the tasks in this order. Let's get it done in this way, or maybe the team's trying to weigh in on a decision, A or B. What do we do? And one person's like, yeah, B. This is our best option, you know. And you find yourself in the moment just being like, I completely disagree. You know what I mean? And I mean, I'm never in those moments. I'm hypothetically speaking for other people,
Right.
but right.
You never know because you work with me. I mean,
Right. And I'm not very opinionated, so when you have those moments of like, oh my gosh, I completely disagree, I think that is like the call to action. I think for us as leaders is to stop and be like, okay, there's an experience attached to that, and just asking a question, be like, hey, what experiences have you had with that option, you know, in the past? What experiences do you have that's kind of like, you know, informing that perspective? Because I don't think I have the same experience, but I want to know what yours is because I think it's valuable, you know.
yeah,
I come back to this just to kind of piggyback off of that, Josh, like creating a culture of communication, like and not just communication for the sake of communication, but like having the tools to ask these types of questions is what we really need in a work environment, and that's why we exist. But if leaders were equipped to one recognize that someone is struggling, or there's like tension or something that needs to be addressed, and they know how to ask the questions to serve someone else, and you create an opportunity for open dialogue or empathetic communication, that is how you live it out in a professional environment, to kind of go back to Zach's question. But again, this isn't normal for a lot of professional environments. So that's why we're here. So that's why we're having this conversation
That's
today.
true.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about authentic community, which is the simple but not easy.
Right.
Yeah, we're not just going to settle for artificial compliance. Like we don't just want to get people just to check a task off the list. I mean, we really want to see our people come alive and live their purpose in our organization to fulfill our purpose. So
that's right. And that's one of the things we talk about is like in the journey, this simple but not easy journey of actually formulating a culture around your purpose and values that leads to fulfillment, you will experience differences and diversity. Like and by diversity, we're referencing more than just what we see on the outside. We're referencing just these things, these traits, like life experiences. We all have very different experiences, and so in the journey of that simple but not easy effort, you will experience people who are like they're coming from a place I don't understand. And I think what I was used to, or what was more modeled to me in previous, not all previous team environments, but I think there was just more or less there was no slow down and explore those kinds of conversations. It was usually like, well, we've been told this is what we're supposed to do. You kind of just, get it done because the boss says so. Hey, this was hey, this is coming down from the top leadership. This is what our team has to do right now. And there's more of an expectation of like, not to really discuss options or things, but just to kind of go along to get along kind of thing. And it's not like we're saying, let's stir up controversy or let's stir up argument or debate. It's not that at all, but it's more about, well, if we're really concerned as leaders about the fulfillment of people and we really want to get their best, the best potential they offer, then there's the only way to do that is to actually explore the depths of who that person is and all that they kind of bring to the table. So it's like, you don't leave your diversity at the door when you come to work. Actually bring it in here and tell us your life stories, because it might reveal great perspective that, really positively like brings solutions to the team you didn't even know you had.
Yeah, I love it, man. Talking about culture and recognizing culture, even just looking at us right now, I feel like I missed the culture memo. Next week I will be dressed up, but this is me living my culture, right? Like,
and it's valuable. It's valuable. I wish I was wearing a ball cap right now, and I couldn't find it.
Creating space for me.
But I couldn't find my Cubs hat today, so I opted for nothing. So
I'm thinking, how do we live this out? And I love it because it's simple. You could go and just start thinking in reverse, like, what are some life experiences personally and professionally? Because we have a list of both that have affected me. Now, for me, it was easier to list out negative life experiences, and it made the positive experiences all that much more valuable.
Yeah.
We don't just want to leave people in this journey by themselves. And so if you're wrestling with naming some of these experiences, then reach out to us and let's start a conversation. Or we've created this awesome tool that can help you unpack, some of these traits that define your worldview. And so I'll just pull it up real quick, alignleadthrive.com/culture map. And you can get started on this journey personally, but also for your team. So you can come together and create the culture that you want as a team to experience fulfillment as individuals and bring your purpose to life. I mean, check it out. Here it is in action.
Right.
Boom.
Yes.
Simple, easy to use, engaging. Your team is going to love it. This is the culture map.
That's right.
So go to that website and get started today. I don't know if we can do this, but we're doing it GLS 2020 and you can get money off. All right. Don't tell anybody I told you.
Yeah.
That's right. Mum's the word. Yeah, we are extending that the discounted rate just to all of our Align Online friends. It's a great tool. It's going to get the conversation started for you and your team to just unpack not just experiences, but all the 5 common traits and really dive deep into who people are and really start to discover why that matters and start to be able to make these much more like astute, specific connections between how diverse people are and the purpose of your team and your organization. You start to connect the dots and be like, oh my gosh, now I know why, Graylin's so passionate about, what we do. Look at these experiences or whatever, that you're discussing. So check out that tool to help teams define their current culture and define the culture they want to build together. It's a great resource for teams.
Can I share something I'm experiencing right now? You just made me think of like a really incredible experience. So I'm an extrovert, and this season of like shelter in place and COVID has been so trying at times. But we Josh and I specifically, and Zach, he joined the team a little later. We got to create these types of environments for people, for teams. And I'll be completely honest, like as Josh and Zach were talking about this, I had a flashback to one of these, these conferences, these professional development days that we would put on, and remembering just kind of walking through this, it's like an auditorium, like a hotel, business area, and hearing the conversations that were going on specifically around culture and experiences, and feeling so encouraged that this was happening in a professional environment. And when we talk about like having conversations, we talk about being equipped with like the tools you need to make this happen. Even right now, we're just kind of forced to be remote. The culture map really is a fantastic tool to create conversations that are intentional and that will still move your organization forward. And that's just like, while we are slowly getting back into an environment where we can have people around us, you know, I'm a hugger. I want to see people's eyes. But right now, man, conversation and dialogue and community, authentic community, as Zach referenced earlier, are so important. And this type of conversation, and what the culture map sets up for you, is invaluable for your teams and for your people. So guys, thank you for letting me share, because it was just kind of like, oh,
That's so good. Yeah.
I miss this. I miss talking to people about this.
Yeah.
So,
I've heard, and in talking about it with people, I've heard other leaders say, I've heard a feedback of like, well, I don't know if we need another like team building tool right now. And it was like, okay. And I was like, that's an interesting thought to me, but I think a follow-up question is like, okay, well, let me ask you this. Do you feel like your team is perfectly united around your culture? Do you feel like your team is all perfectly on board to your purpose? And do they all understand exactly like the values that you're trying to live by day in and day out? Do you sense that like everyone's really, really like on the same page about that and united in that effort? And it's like, well, if your response is no, like, well, no, maybe not. It's like, well, then maybe a team building tool could be helpful.
right.
Maybe this could help unlock the right conversations for you to establish an even more solidified culture and a better solidified experience of fulfillment for everyone on that team. So I would just say that it's not a there's a whole bunch of resources out there, of course, for leaders to use and things you can find for your team, and
just
some
not
things
as good as this
more
one.
focused, but they're just not as good.
This is like the starting line.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, that is experiences. I would invite, people in our Line Online community in the comments. You can share an experience, even if it's just a brief reference to something that just shapes the way that you show up to work nowadays. What is one thing like you can remember that now as you approach work or approach your team, like how does it really influence you or shape you in that? So Graylin, I thought that was a good reference to you. My quick reference, my quick story is, for years working in this kind of it was almost like being a nonprofit embedded within a company that ran international schools, but working in the school setting is very just clock oriented and very assessments driven, right? And so even in being in that kind of a culture for a while that was very driven by assessments and standards and stuff, for a very good reason. Coming out of that back into corporate world, I realized it took me a while to kind of get out of the mindset of kind of a rigorous, in-depth assessment of things. Not that it's not bad, and not that we don't do that on our team, but I had to turn off that radar a little bit for everything. You know what I mean? It was like I had to start realizing, okay, we do assess things. It looks very different the way we assess things, and we don't maybe have to assess every little detail. And then, so that was for me an experience of like coming out of that was like I came in with expectations and was like, oh, well, this is a very different environment with very different purpose and very different set of goals and different clients, completely different clientele. So it's just like this is a different kind of company. It's a different industry. I need to turn it down a little bit, So for me, that was one example of like coming from one environment to another, and how it's a culture change, and how that changed the way it impacted the way that I showed up, and expectations I had on other people. So share your stories in our comments. What experience do you have that shapes the way you show up for your team today? We'd love to hear the stories.
Yeah. What about you, Zach?
I'm gonna drop mine in the comments.
Okay.
I'm gonna read this goodness.
That's good. All right. Well, we'll be back next week, next Tuesday, noon Central Time here in the U.S. And we'll be continuing our conversation on culture and another one of the 5 common traits that shape our worldview and how we show up and impact the culture that we're a part of on our teams. So thanks for digging into conversation with us today. and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Josh.
Bye, guys.
Bye.